Alright, so I'm just going to tell you a story about how I became a little bit nihilistic in order to succeed in business. Now, I came to Tokyo about 4 years ago, and at the time I didn't have a job or like a career or anything. I sort of fell into this position where I was being dispatched as an English teacher to like various different companies, about 6 of them. And naturally you spend a lot of time with the students, much more than the dispatch company itself, because they just get the jobs and they give me the job, right? So I understood the client's problems and what's going on in the company. So I had a unique position there. At the same time, the dispatch company, they would take like 50% of the fee, which is not much anyway. Like the total fee was like probably about 6,000 yen, and I'd probably get like 3,000 yen an hour. That's not too bad, I guess, but you can't really start a family on that. What I did was I sort of figured out when the contract renewal date was coming up, and I kind of got all the companies like together. Like I sort of organized meetings like every day of the week on that week. So it was like a sort of the week of the long nights, if you get what I mean, if you know your history. So basically, I got those companies together. I said to them, look, I want to do stuff with my life. I don't want to just be like on the hamster wheel, just working away and not getting anywhere. I want to be able to like provide for like a family, if I choose to start one. Doing what I'm doing right now is not going to let me do that. On the other hand, coming from England, like England's British people put a lot of emphasis on loyalty. You can see that in like football. In football, like people will never change which football team they support. And actually, it's a bit stupid, but that is culture. That is morals, I guess. But sometimes, the morals, they go against, what makes sense in terms of business. And so I had to I had to shed my morals in that moment, and I had to become nihilistic to succeed in business. And so I was able to successfully take 4 of the 6 companies that I was taking care of, and they're still my clients today, 4 years on, which is fantastic, and they've been a real help to me. But I sort of lost a part of myself. I lost that innocence, I guess, of being loyal to the people who gave you the opportunity. But that's business, right? It's just business, like they say in Hollywood. And so I want to explain to you a little bit more about this notion of morals and moralistic capitalism and nihilistic capitalism, and how they interact with each other, and how I believe that the most successful people in business are true nihilists. They don't believe in any kind of moral, and they will do whatever they can for money. And I think it's a topic worth discussing. But that's my story anyway. Hello. So let me explain to you the difference between nihilistic capitalism. I've written it in Japanese. I'm not going to bother changing it. Sorry, mate. But nihilistic capitalism here on your right, versus moral capitalism on the left. Now, I think it's useful to start by defining what I mean by nihilistic capitalism. So what I mean by nihilistic capitalism is a kind of capitalism which doesn't have any morals, no principles. So basically anybody who would do whatever for money, like the only question he would ask is how much, right? Now, compared to that, a moral capitalist will try to sell things like ethics, things like dreams or fantasies. On the left here, I've given some examples here of people who sell ethics. Vegans, there's a market there. People buy vegan things. A lot of the times they're ethically motivated because they don't want to harm animals. so they would spend money on that. It's not a question of value, it's more of a question of values. So it's a fundamental difference. The fundamental difference between moral and nihilistic capitalism is moral capitalism sells values, nihilistic capitalism sells value. Right? It's a big difference there. All right, so I've given you the vegan example. Also, fair trade coffee. Right? Fair trade coffee. What is that? It's just, the product is the same. You're not getting any better coffee. It's just that the company selling it, like say Starbucks, they've come out and they said that we're going to do something good. We're going to do something moral. We're going to pay the coffee farmers a living wage. All right, good for them, but that's, people believe in that. That's moral capitalism. Let's go to dreams, selling dreams, right? I know a lot of people might just think this is like nonsense, but I think selling reusable bags is like selling a dream. I was having a conversation with this guy yesterday, and he said that we're destroying the planet. Okay, maybe I don't know. Like, really, I don't know. I don't know how he knows either. But he I don't know actually if he used reusable bags. I think he used a plastic bag. Naughty fella. But anyway, yeah. So like to sell the morals, right? To sell the dream that you are kind of doing your part to save the world. Like maybe you would buy a reusable bag, or you would say no to like plastic straws or something like that. I don't know. Like it's selling morals at the end of the day. All right, and finally down here we've got fantasy, selling fantasies. This is a little bit more malicious in intent than selling a dream. And I've got here mutenka, which is Japanese for no additives. So for example, if you care about what you eat and you wish to eat healthy, you probably wouldn't want any chemical additives in your food. Some companies, right, I'm referring to specifically like beef bowl purveyors in Japan. They say that their beef bowls or gyudon are mutenka. But these are just words, okay? Words are very flexible in their meaning. So if you want to look up what it means, what mutenka means, and how they use the company uses the term, you will find that the company says mutenka according to our own standards of what it means to be mutenka, right? So I take that take that with a pinch of salt. I've tasted their beef bowls. I'm pretty sure there's some kind of chemical in it. It tastes like it. I usually don't eat these things, so I can taste it. But yeah, just be aware that there are companies that will try to sell you a fantasy, right, in the name of morals. So I actually think that moral capitalists are sometimes, they're even worse than nihilistic capitalists, because sometimes moral capitalists, they pretend to be moral, but they're actually nihilistic, right? They will pretend to sell you, they will pretend that they're very ethical, they will pretend that they're good people, but really all they just want is your money, right? So, going back to nihilistic capitalism, a nihilistic capitalist is only concerned with value, right? So he is concerned with price, and for what price, what does he get? So here I've given a couple of examples of hallmarks of nihilistic capitalists. Nihilistic capitalists, they're interested in globalka, which is globalization. What is globalization? It's securing cheaper materials from overseas, finding new markets overseas, trying to offshore factories, getting cheaper labor from other countries, which is happening in Japan. It's happened in England with the EU and everything. These are just basically globalists. They just want more money. They're not going to pretend that they have some kind of moral code. They just want more money. They're profit maximizers. This is what they teach in business school. So a nihilistic capitalist would ask, I will pay this money, right? If they're buying something, they will say, okay, we're going to pay this much money. What are we going to get in return? Right? That's a rational question. No morals involved, I don't think, at this stage. So if you think about laptop providers, computers, notepads, it's all about the technical specs. Accepting Apple MacBooks, which I think has some kind of like moralistic capitalist tendencies. I think most of the laptop market is very deflationary, it's nihilistic. It's just various players competing on specs rather than something subjective, some subjective moral quality. That's another key difference. Nihilistic capitalists are very objective. Moralistic capitalists are incredibly subjective. They will try to sell you something which has no inherent value except what people ascribe to it. Whereas nihilistic capitalists is just a question of numbers, right? Okay, that's like the theoretical part. And you probably want to know more about the examples. So I'll give you an example, because I used to be a sushi chef, and I've seen how nihilistic capitalism changed the sushi industry forever. So in Japan, we have what you call sushi counters, which are like the traditional sushi homes, like sushi houses, small bars, family owned, very high quality usually. And we have the conveyor belt sushi, the ones on the revolving belts, right? I want to talk about the conveyor belt sushi. Those companies, they basically source fish from around the world, right? They're looking for the cheapest minimum standard of fish in terms of quality, that people won't get sick from eating it. Obviously they want it to taste good or whatever, but they're interested in selling as much as possible. It's mass market stuff. I believe that revolving conveyor belt sushi, kaiten sushi, is nihilistic. They're just looking to globalize their supply chains by getting more fish from at the cheapest prices from different countries, and also automating, right? They basically automating, right? I've worked in sushi. I know what it is. They have a machine. The rice ball comes up, and all the chef has to do is just make sure that the fish, which has already been pre-cut in the factory, they just put it on the rice that comes out of the machine. So it's automated, it's globalized, and they may try to sell you, they may sell you that we are selling sushi, but in my mind, I don't really consider kaiten sushi or conveyor belt sushi to be real sushi. I never go there myself. It's a question of, I buy the morals of sushi. I go and eat at select sushi bars. I'm not trying to sound arrogant here, because I can't help it, but basically, I would rather spend $100 on like proper sushi rather than just maybe $20 or $30 at a conveyor belt sushi. That's just my morals, I want high quality sushi. With moralistic capitalist sushi bars, making it sound very complicated. The chefs, they've honed their techniques over 10 years or 20 years. They become master chefs. It's their craft. And they're not going to, they would be less inclined to cheapen their product by, buying fish from, outside of the local waters. It's actually, to be honest, it's very difficult these days. But, traditionally they would go down to Tsukiji market in Tokyo to find like the freshest fish. And that's tradition, that's the morals, that's the morals that I would like to buy into. That's why I'm willing to spend more money, right? To give you an example of a successful moralistic capitalist, I'll give you the example of Starbucks. Starbucks is a fantastic company, but their coffees are very expensive. I don't go there myself. Some people pay 400 yen or for $4 or $5 or whatever for a cup of coffee. It's insane for me, but there's a logic to it, I think. And Starbucks has managed to create this image for itself as a nice place to go, I guess. And part of that is, I think, that the employees at Starbucks, it doesn't matter what level employees they are or what kind of contracts they're on, they all get health benefits. That's just one of the moral principles that the ex-CEO, Howard Schultz, had. He just believed that every employee should have health benefits. And that moral is a cost, right, to the company. It costs money for this kind of stuff. Also, fair trade coffee, that costs money. But they are successful in selling their product or service or whatever it is at a premium, they're very good at selling their morals. They are very good at making people understand the value of what they're selling. And I think that's really the success. That's really the key to success in moralistic capitalism. You have to be a good salesman. You have to be able to convince people that the morals that you're selling are valuable and they're worth it. A nihilistic capitalist does not do that. A nihilistic capitalist is just concerned with how much, right? It sounds terrible. My advice, my business advice, personally, is try to be nihilistic as possible, right? Because, you know, this is Darwinism, right? Darwinism is all about adapting to your environment, which means you have to be flexible. You can't be going around having a principle that doesn't change. So I think that nihilistic capitalists are the long-term survivors of this capitalist game. Whereas if you truly believe in, you know, your morals, I think at some point you'll be challenged in certain ways, like in the story that I gave you earlier. Sometimes you have to just accept that you're a real nihilist. You know, you might a lot of people, they're living a double life. You know, they believe that they're moral capitalists, when really they're complete hypocrites. I know this one guy. He works for a law firm. He's very much against tobacco. He hates it. You know, he doesn't want to go anywhere near it. But the thing is, like, the law firm that he works for has one of the big 5 tobacco companies as its clients, and he works for them. So he's benefiting from the sale of tobacco while he's hating tobacco. And like, this guy is just caught in this kind of moral conflict within himself. He's probably in a very shitty place, and I know he's in a shitty place because he's fucked in the head. But excuse me, anyway. I think it's much better, much healthier to just accept who you are. Is that, you know, if you are a nihilistic capitalist and you're not, you know, you're willing to change with the environment, I think that's a very healthy mindset to have. Yeah, and just beware of moralistic capitalists selling you morals that, you know, maybe you believe in those morals, but maybe the people selling those morals are disingenuous. They might be nihilistic capitalists. If you're confused, just leave some comments. I'll be happy to respond to you. Peace.